Yeah. Here we go. Mimi. The Deco and Enigmatic Joker. What? Yes. We're here. We are again. This is Enigmatic Joker in the Random Entertainment Channel. Welcome, friends and companions. Oh, before this broadcast starts, we have some commercials. Sci-Fi and fantasy fans meet on this channel for fun chats about their beloved books, movies, series, and franchises. We also talk about food, drinks, and music and sport. They are random because we will discuss everything that involves entertainment, including movies, series, books, and music. Random because we will broadcast on non-fixed times, actually on many different times. And in 1 week time is the third stream. So we are running on the train. You need to subscribe to this channel to know what time the broadcast is. And random also because we have most of the time we have different guests. And sometimes I'm alone. It depends on who's available. And but you are always invited to join the panel. You can contact me. You can see it on the info page of my YouTube channel. And you are invited. Have you got ideas for content? You can also contact me. And also you can meet us on Discord, Dutch Sci-Fi and Fantasy Community. It's still in development, but we can already chat with each other, and we can embody the Discord server. We can also there discuss our favorite franchises, and yeah, it's also for idea for content for this channel. Next one is that we can recommendation a playlist of about the personality of the Doctor, and that is still in also in development, because we have in the future we have the 14th and the 15th Doctor. So, but we have already the 13th Doctors in one playlist, and you can hear that and can listen to that. It's a sort of encyclopedia. And also we now are in a current series called The Companions of the Doctor. And today we have a blockbuster or also we have a double Doctor, and that is the live stream about the Companions of the Eighth Doctor and live stream about the Companions of the War Doctor. And that is a very interesting one, the War Doctor, because I was not so familiar with Companions, but I found some Companions from the War Doctor. So stay tuned on and listen to this live stream, and you will get more knowledge and enthusiasm about this Doctor. So cheers, mate, and have a lot of fun. Your host, Enigmatic Joker, and also we have a guest here, my beloved friend, Sedeko.
Hello.
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 Yeah, are you there?
I am. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Right.
Perfect.
Yeah, we're doing two Doctors today.
Two Doctors.
Quite a few. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've done some research on the War Doctor and on the Eighth Doctor, because I do listen to quite a lot of the audios. So I've got something on the companions that's because we like in terms of TV companions, we only saw a few companions for the Eighth Doctor and only a few for the War Doctor, but there's quite a few others on other media. I thought,
yes, and also doing, yeah.
So I was thinking, well, we'll talk about Grace, but probably and Chang Li, but maybe not too long because there's a lot of other companions to cover as well.
That's right. We also do Chang Li, indeed.
Yes.
Grace is I saw on many sources. Grace is the only one that was registered. Registered. Is registered. Oh no, let's go further. She's the only one is mentioned.
Oh yeah.
on a certain wiki, but as you can see in the banner of this live stream, is Chang Li's. I think also Chang Li is a companion because he's on the side of the Doctor, and has become a main role in the movie, the Doctor Who movie. But that's what most of all of the time we talk about the movie in case of Grace in that context. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think you have saw the movie in the past.
Yeah, I saw it when it first broadcast here in Britain in 1996. I was
So
14 at the time.
you were at the premiere.
Yeah, well,
Oh,
I think I try to remember where it premiered first. It might have premiered in America first, and we got the next version. Because I do remember actually the day that it broadcast. There was apparently it was also the same day that the video release happened. Because I think there was a midnight, like I think HMV was releasing the video at midnight, and there was a huge queue of fans queuing up. And in fact, one of the writers of DWM, I think it was Matthew Jones, who wrote the Satan Pit and the Impossible Planet. He was actually in the queue, and he kind of, because he was kind of really keen to see it, and he kind of, well, he remembered the anticipation. He kind of wrote about it, and he felt it missed the mark. I do remember that. That was kind of the gist of his article. But I mean, it was the first Doctor Who we'd had in 7 years actually, and it was kind of
right.
It was a nice novel feeling to have it back on screen. Although reception was mixed, shall we say?
Yeah, it was meant for to revive Doctor Who again, but it failed.
Yeah, I think the BBC. I think it was strange because the Americans they put a lot into it, but then they kind of decided at the last minute that if it meant that they were going to have to kind of keep on paying royalties to the BBC for the use of the Doctor Who copyright, and they decided actually we'll go with the product that we won't have to do that with. So they basically left Doctor Who behind. Also, they broadcast it the same night that Roseanne was having its big finale, and so it tanked in the ratings there in America. In Britain, it got like something like 9 million. Like people were really eager to see it again. So I think it kind of revealed that there was, despite what the BBC and Michael Grade had said, there was still an audience for Doctor Who. The public was still behind the idea of the show coming back. And I think, to a degree, people, viewers were kind of saying, you know what, whether they liked the film or not. I mean, if they liked the film, it was kind of, it would be great to see Doctor Who back, full time in this. And for those who didn't like the film, they said, you know what, it was too American, and that, I think, caused a lot of the public to start saying, you know what, there was something special about the original series. And, they started to kind of reappreciate what it was about the classic series, I should probably describe my reaction. I mean, I was behind the film for the first hour or so, and then the ending was a bit confused, and I think that's when it kind of it didn't really land for me.
Okay.
I did feel in a way it was a little bit of a miss, if you know what I mean.
Anticlimax.
Yeah. And it does feel in hindsight like it was one of those, like they had a committee and they were all chucking ideas of how it should end. And so they tried to do every ending. They tried to do the bleak ending, the happy ending. And it was just like, so I just kind of came away from that thinking the ending didn't make sense, really. I'm not sure. I didn't get it, if you know what I mean. And it's a shame because up until then I thought, this is good so far.
Yeah. I think I have the same thing. When I first saw it on internet, this movie. In the beginning, it was very promising, but I also had the same thought that at the end I was missing something.
Yeah,
I was missing something, and I cannot explain, but what that exactly was, but or is or yeah. It was a little bit, what you said was confusing. Yeah, I think that's some confusing element in it. That's okay. And now what then? But that's yeah. I think it was meant to be to have some link to next series because they wanted to Americanize it. I think new American produce for
Yeah,
the series. It was a sort of backdoor pilot for a new American produced Doctor Who TV series, but and I all know it introduced Paul McGann as the Eighth Doctor,
yeah, Paul McGann.
the Eighth
I
Doctor,
mean,
and
most
yeah,
critics, most fan critics of the film will still say he was great as the Doctor in it. Like, no, regardless of what they thought of the film, they thought he was brilliant in
yeah.
the role. And I thought
Mhm.
it was kind of people thought he got it. He was the Doctor.
Yes, right. But I was immediately I was in love with this Doctor.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think it was Paul McGann, a good Doctor. That's why it's so yeah. It's a yeah pity that he hasn't had his own series.
I liked him, but I didn't fall in love with him until the audios. I started listening to the audios and very quickly became a favorite because the audios he was in
Yeah,
were pretty good.
I think he's the Doctor with the most audio series, isn't it?
Um, well, kind of. I mean,
Of a big contribution. See, the maybe the better word, big contribution.
he kind of like Big Finish. They at first they were just doing the first three Doctors, and then I think 2001. Then Paul McGann did his first audio, which it was either Sharda or it was Storm Warning. And Storm Warning was the beginning of this long arc in the audios about the Doctor and this another companion, Charlie Pollard. But we'll get into that later. We're jumping ahead, but yeah,
Yeah,
they could do like I think that was the thing. They could do an arc with this Doctor, whereas with the fifth, sixth, and seventh Doctor, they're a bit limited in the fact that we kind of knew where they had to kind of end. Each story had to kind of end in a way that felt like the status quo was preserved, so that it fit into TV continuity. Whereas with the Eighth Doctor, they had a lot more freedom. They could go make new turnings, make new journeys with this Doctor.
yeah,
They weren't as bound or constrained. They could do arcs.
yeah.
They could do character arcs.
So yeah. So a little bit of background story about the movie. So we mentioned also Paul McGann now. There was his only televised appearance as the character until the Night of the Doctor in 2013. That was a
Yeah, so
little
he's had two.
short special. Yeah. Well, it's a
So
little bit explaining about it. Hmm.
in total, he's only had two TV appearances. Then the TV movie
Yeah.
and the Night of the Doctor.
Yeah.
And fans have petitioned and begged for more, but nothing yet.
Yeah, that's right.
Oh
Yeah.
I forgot that there's a third if you count the Power of the Doctor. He has a brief cameo there.
Um. Yeah. Also the seventh. Um. Yeah. But in Night of the Doctor is a little bit explained about how he became the War Doctor.
Yeah,
Yeah.
late.
It's also what you also it also marked the final appearance of Sylvester McCoy because we can see Sylvester McCoy as the Seventh Doctor in the movie when he regenerates in a refrigerator,
Yeah,
and
the Lord.
we see him we see him in Power of the Darkness special, less special, and we see that was also the only appearance of what we will discuss, the only appearance of Daphne Esbrook as companion of Grace Hallway.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Grace Halloway. And this was an interesting movie, by the way, because here see we already some romantic relation between this companion and the A Doctor.
yeah. I do feel like if the new series,
Most romantic moments, I think, besides
yeah,
River Song, but this was a very intense one.
yeah. I think if it wasn't for the new series, you could say that romance was this Doctor's unique selling point, his USP.
Yeah,
But like, it kind of became it kind of became the norm from this point on with
yeah,
the revival. which I've not so keen on, but I guess that's what happened.
So
But
they
yeah,
wanted to try something. I think everyone wanted to try it, but the fans didn't like it. I think.
well, I think Hollywood certainly wanted to go there. They wanted obviously a bit of a romantic quality to it. They thought that's what gets the
Yeah.
rating. That's what people want. They want the love story, and
Mhm.
and so that's what they went for.
Yeah.
Which it was kind of prior to then. The only hint that'd been of a romance in Doctor Who was a brief moment in the Aztecs when the Doctor meets this Aztec woman called Kamika, and
Oh yeah.
he has some cocoa with her and gets engaged.
Yeah, Coco. He doesn't know that he's engaged then.
Nah.
Very funny. The Aztecs, yes.
Mm-hmm.
And we also see Eric Roberts' version of the Master in this movie. Only one
Yeah,
that he plays the Master. I think it was a good Master, Eric Roberts, by the way.
I think
And
he.
he reprised the role beside he reprised the role in the audio dramas, by the way.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I've not heard the audio story he did, but yeah, it's. I thought he was kind of quite. Like, I think he had actually. He was a fan, so he kind of think he got the character. So, when he kind of. He got there was kind of a bit of a. I mean, sometimes I think he played it a bit too slimy, but I think he got the essence of the Master a bit. Like we'd watched the show, he seemed to know the character, and he says that I've never liked this planet Doctor. I thought that is the Master. That's that's always been the Master kind of thing. Yeah, and then so we got the Master, we got the Doctor, and the backstory I believe was that the Seventh Doctor was told that the Master had been caught and exterminated by the Daleks on Skaro.
Yeah, yeah.
So we don't know how, but the Master had actually, in his kind of final will and testament, he said, "My last request is I want the Doctor, my old mortal enemy, to take my remains back to Gallifrey."
Yeah.
And so the Doctor does that. He kind of he picks up his remains, and the Doctor even says, like, he actually locks the Master's remains in this casket, and he says, "Even in death, I couldn't trust him." So that's what kind of, I thought that was a beautiful line. That was a perfect line. But it goes wrong. The Master, some essence of the Master, who's just in this gelatinous goo state now, manages to escape the casket, sabotage the TARDIS, and cause it to crash on Earth, San Francisco, Chinatown, 1999. The final day before turn of the millennium. And the Doctor, he goes out and he's immediately he walks out just in the middle of this gang war between these rival these Asian gangs, and they're having this shootout, and the Doctor gets shot. Now there's one of the rival gang, one of the rival gang members is Chang Li, and he's the only survivor of that shootout, and that's how he comes into the picture. And he's the one who he's the one who basically calls on the ambulance to get the Doctor to help, and he basically had to sign and claim to be a known relative of the Doctor's.
Yeah.
And who is the ambulance driver when he's picked up? Well, who's the
Grace?
No. The guy in the ambulance is Bruce.
Oh yeah, Bruce. That's right.
Yeah.
But the Master takes his body.
It does, yeah. The Master's essence sneaks aboard the ambulance and later ends up in Bruce's pocket and ambushes him in the night.
Yeah.
And of course,
the bullets are removed by Grace Holloway.
Yeah, and she botches the surgery because she doesn't understand that it is alien physiognomy, and he does try to warn her, but then they kind of they just think he's delirious, so they kind of subdue him with the gas anesthetic again.
Yeah.
So she ends up in the wrong section of his body because obviously it's an alien physiognomy, and basically he goes into cardiac arrest, and she's there when he basically is pronounced dead.
Yeah.
And she feels really guilty about it. She doesn't understand how she botched it, because she's clearly someone who thinks of herself as she knows the human body well, and she just doesn't understand how she got lost. Mm-hmm. So it does feel like she's not just a novice. She's very, very good at this, and she's and as she looks over the medical records and the X-rays as well, she gets the sense this guy's got a very alien physiognomy. Who was he? And she actually does end up losing a job over it. She her boss wants to cover it up and say, well, look, you're a great doctor. Let's cover this scandal up, and you'll be able to keep your job. But she sticks to her principles and says, no, you can't cover me up. I'm going to quit. Yeah. I'm not. This is just her ethics compelled to say, I'm sticking with this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then as she's leaving with her bags packed, who does she meet? The doctor.
The doctor, yeah.
The eighth doctor.
Mm-hmm.
And she recognizes him. No, he recognizes her, but she obviously, because he's regenerated, she doesn't know who he is. But eventually she takes him home, and she's having to help him because the doctor's just regenerated, so she's his only guide to reconstructing his identity. She's trying to help him understand who he is, and she takes him home. And now the thing about Grace is she's a bit of a big fan of old classical music and opera. She's a big fan of Puccini's Madame Butterfly, and when she's playing that in the background, the doctor recognizes Puccini. Says, I was with him when he was, he actually says, I know these historical figures. And so she's she really doesn't, she's dubious, of course, but she does humor him. I think in a way she humors him because there is something very charming about him, and she senses that he's eccentric, but he's not someone she feels threatened by, if you know what I mean. She gets the sense that he's that he's very gentle, and he's very much a gentleman. He's not, that even if he's slightly, she suspects he's not mentally all there, but she does feel like he's not a threat, if you know what I mean. And I think, and I suppose now she's lost her job, she doesn't really have much else to do, so she's trying to help this guy find out who he was.
Yes.
And obviously we do know there is a growing attraction there, because obviously when he does plant a kiss on her, she's like, oh, now do that again, kind of thing. So she's got the romantic thing about her as well. She's
yes, that's right.
I get the sense she probably reads a lot of Mills and Boon, and she's always maybe secretly wanted that to happen to her, kind of thing.
Yeah.
That romantic love story.
Romantic love story, yes. And in all things, these things, the masters want to that he is persuading to open the TARDIS Eye of Harmony.
Yeah, we're talking about
central team.
Yeah, we're talking about Chang Li now, because Chang Li, he was given because the doctor passed away, basically, and he signed as he was the next of kin. The hospital basically returned his items, gave the doctor's items to him, and all that was in his bag was basically his coat, his bag, the TARDIS key. And so the Chang Li returned to the crime scene, where the shooting happened, obviously, and he finds that the key actually works for the TARDIS. He goes in, obviously surprised at how, this is the. Now, some fans have said this should have been the moment where the audience is with Chang Li and realizes the TARDIS is bigger on the inside than the outside. Yeah. And they feel like it should have been done that way around rather than introduced to the inside outside then shown the outside and all that. It should have been the audience's way in. In terms of the fact this was supposed to be for a first time audience of Americans who'd never seen the show before. But anyway, that's by the by. So he goes in and he meets the Master, and the Master is now in Bruce's body. He's basically possessed Bruce.
Yeah.
And Chang Li is he's very overwhelmed by the Master. The Master kind of hypnotizes him, gets him under his wing, and convinces him that the Doctor is this evil, time-traveling tyrant who has done the most unspeakable crimes throughout history.
Yeah.
And this is the thing, Chang Li is very gullible, and I think maybe he knows deep down that the Master is quite sinister, like maybe that it's not quite true, because I think Chang Li doesn't really like the scenario presents questions like what happened to the real Bruce, and I think Chang Li would probably have to know what happened.
Yeah,
I mean the Master is telling the truth when he says that he has because the Master basically his plan is to perform this ritual that will allow him to steal the Doctor's body, and once he steals the Doctor's body, he has the Doctor's regenerations. The Doctor's on his 8th life, so he's got 5 more lives ahead before his 13th life, which is the final life. And the Master, of course, is on his final life. He's been on his final life, obviously, since the Keeper of Trekken, and he's very much like, if I don't get a new body soon, I'm going to die, because he's in Bruce's body. And there is an early scene where rather kind of a scene where you see it's this rather odd scene where Bruce the Master in Bruce's body goes up to the receptionist and he's saying, have you seen, I'm here to collect the man who died, and you actually see him, he's kind of pulling one of his fingernails off, and it's a gross moment. And it's like, what was that about? And now apparently in the original script that was a prelude to the fact that gradually over time we were supposed to see the body, Bruce's body decaying more and more, a bit like Omega in Arc of Infinity. So that was that was supposed to be what was happening, but it didn't quite translate. It didn't quite make it to screen. No. But that's the point. So Chang Li's he's gullible to the Master. He believes it, and he's been promised, obviously, that if he does this, then he'll be rewarded with these bags of gold dust. Basically, he says, I'll pay you this much, and you get the rest if you help me. So, but basically, that's kind of what cements his deal. Is he wants. He's just out in for the money, it seems.
Yeah, it's very good in budget for.
Indeed, but then again, it's also it's also the fact that Chang Li has nothing to lose at the moment. He's lost his friends. He's kind of on the margins of society anyway. So he probably feels, that money is his one chance at a better life. So he's going to go for it.
Yes, that's and you can see that through the movie. Chang Li's background and what the things he experienced is experiencing, and you can see as viewer that he wants to have want to make a new start for himself. That he is battling, and I think that is very well written and very well played in the movie. The facts, these facts.
Yeah.
So it's for us. Chang Li is also sort of companion then in this movie because of this big story about him.
Yeah, he kind of does redeem himself at the end. Yes.
Yeah, redeeming because he was first he's influenced by the Master, but after a while he comes. Later on, he comes to realize that the Doctor is on the good side. Then
the Doctor gets him to really examine the Master's words and say, "Look, his Master slipped. He said, I've wasted all my life because of you." And he's saying to Chang Li, "That's not what he told you, is it? He told you that I stole his lives, but he's saying he wasted his life because of me," which means he's admitting now that that he's lied, and that's when Chang Li begins to wake up. It's like he realizes the Master's evil. That's when he recoils and he realizes, I can't fool myself anymore about what he's really after. Now, I think part of the reason why he was considered a companion is because I think that was meant to be the plan. Like the pilot was supposed to be a introduce Grace and Chang Li, and I think it probably was intended that they would become companions. Like it ends with the Doctor saying goodbye to them, but presumably, I think if it went to series, then you'd see a story where they both kind of became companion again. You'd meet them again, and from then on, they'd kind of travel together.
Yeah.
A bit like, I suppose, Clara in The Bells of St. John. At the end of that story, she leaves, but she says, "I'll pick me up next week, and we'll become proper companions then."
Yeah. One interesting fact is that with the case of the Eye of Harmony with the Master, that Lee and also Grace are killed, but they are revived again through the Eye of Harmony.
That made no sense whatsoever.
No, it's right. I have, by the way, it was about a year ago. I did a stream about the Eye of Harmony. By the way, about the mystery of the Eye of Harmony. What place in the Doctor Who universe has the Eye of Harmony? So for a reference to that, you can listen and watch that stream about the Eye of Harmony, because there are some interesting things I think about this, and also with this come back to alive to Grace and Lee. Yeah.
Now the thing about Grace is the Doctor does offer her the chance to travel the universe with him, and she doesn't go with him. She refuses. She decides that she wants to stay in the current. She wants to continue with her own life, really.
Yeah.
And so it is kind of it's a bit. Looking back on it, that is a bit odd, because usually we're used to companions now. They meet the Doctor, they discover that he can travel the universe, and nowadays, companions are thinking, well, you only live once. I'm young.
Yeah.
It's a chance to see wonders I've never seen before. How can I say no? I'll hate myself for the rest of my life if I say no. But she decides she doesn't want to join him, which is, and you're thinking, well, maybe she should have said yes. Maybe it's I kind of think about Grace's character. She probably should have been more tempted, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
But maybe
she's one of the companions who doesn't travel with the Doctor. He offers it, but she doesn't want it. No.
Yeah, I think she kind of.
I don't know the motives. Don't know really the motives why she doesn't travel with him. Because she likes him, but I think, you can speculate about it. What are her motives to not to travel with the Doctor? Because she's something romantically involved with
that's something something they probably would have explained if they'd gone to series, I suppose.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I think that is there anything more to say on Grace and Chang Li, or should
no?
We...
I think we did a good job with these two companions on screen. These two companions on screen. Now we have the audio also. Companions of this eighth Doctor. And you already mentioned Pollard.
Charlie Pollard. She's an
Yeah.
Edwardian adventuress who snuck on board the airship R101 on its maiden flight.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the R101 notoriously crashed on its flight, and
Mm-hmm.
now the plot I remember was that the R101 ends up in the story. Basically, it ends up venturing beyond the skies, and it meets this alien, comes in contact with this alien race, and this alien race is quite a kind of almost a collective intelligence, and it's actually got this kind of the entire race is like one hive mind, or rather, it's kind of like aspects of a greater hive mind, if you know what I mean. And something goes wrong. One of the crew decides to try and make a deal with the lower rungs of this society, causes chaos, and so the ship crashes, but the Doctor does get Charlie to safety in the end. And so basically, Charlie is alive, and even though she was kind of supposed to be fated to die. And so that's the beginning of the Doctor and Charlie's adventures together.
Yeah.
And during the series, of course, it turns out that because Charlie was fated to die, she's become a kind of a walking paradox. And wherever she's gone, she's almost kind of attracted this force called anti-time from this anti-time universe. Basically, her existence as a paradox has kind of created a kind of gateway for it.
Mm-hmm.
And we noticed this in various times. Like the Doctor takes her to Edward Grove, which was her old childhood home, where she was raised with under this very rich family. And the scullery maid had kind of committed suicide, and because of this, now apparently the scullery maid committed suicide because she'd been bullied a lot by Charlie's family, and she'd always remembered baby Charlie, young child Charlie, as being the one member of the family who was very fond of her. And it was very kind of, she was very, like, it was very miserable. And when she heard the news that the R101 had crashed, that was the final straw for it. She said, okay, Charlie's dead. She's the only friend I had in that family, and now I've got nothing to live for. So she committed suicide, and that kind of caused a paradox because, of course, now Charlie's alive, and it's created a paradox because she killed herself for nothing now, and that causes wherever she's gone, it's kind of caused various paradoxes, like and in the end, the Time Lords intervene and they decide that they're going to try and fix this. Now they're not going to return Charlie home. They're not going to return Charlie home, but they are going to try and seal the rift that she's created. Because Romana is president of Gallifrey now, and the Doctor is basically saying, he's entrusting Romana to do the right thing and not to sacrifice Charlie and say, because he's saying, look, I don't care that she was fated to die. She's my best friend. I love her, and I. She deserves the right to live. She survived. She's earned that right, and that's what creates the. And so basically, the Time Lords perform this operation that opens this doorway, this gateway to the anti-time universe.
Yeah,
and that's where they encounter the beings of anti-time, and a lot of it is a huge number of erased Time Lord criminals, because basically when Time Lords are sentenced to death, sometimes they're sentenced to being disillusioned, which means that basically they're erased from time, and it turns out that the anti-time universe is where their souls go, and so they have to fight their way out of that. I mean, the character of Charlie, she's Edwardian, but she's also she's quite modern in some ways, a very modern sensibilities, I'd say. Yeah, she's kind of, she doesn't believe in kind of, she resents anything patriarchal. She's very much a free spirit, and she doesn't, she's not going to be told what to do by anyone. So she's very headstrong, very forthright, very outspoken.
Yeah.
She's very kind of, very, very witty. She does enjoy having a kind of, cheeky banter with the Doctor kind of thing. That's the main things that stand out about her.
Yes.
She kind of she's quite kind of she's quite shrewd about about the Doctor as well. Like there is a like in stories like Embrace the Darkness and Terra Firma, she senses that something really is troubling the Doctor, and she immediately does it, and she immediately breaks it down. You know, what's wrong with him, why he's got this complex, and she often talks him out of doing something really stupid out of ego or kind of a sense of misplaced guilt or whatever, or self-righteousness. She's very good at dissuading him from going too far with a mistake. You know, she's very good at confronting the Doctor. I think she's very good at that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And you know, she is put in some very challenging positions as well.
Yeah, really challenging the Doctor.
Mm-hmm.
He needs that.
Indeed, yeah. And it is hinted that maybe, like, I think various writers kind of toyed with the idea: is this going to be a romantic story about the Doctor falling in love with his companion or not? And I think in many ways she obviously, it's very strongly hinted that she wants it to be a romantic relationship.
Mm-hmm.
And like I think she's
leave it open.
Yeah,
leave
indeed.
That open.
Yeah.
Because he can ruin it, but he can also build it. But you must do it properly.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. The earliest audio released adventures, by the way.
Sorry?
Was a companion called Mary Shelley.
Oh yes, yeah. He travelled with her in. There's 4 particular stories they travelled together. One was Now the thing is there are various different there were separate canons of Doctor Who after the TV movie.
Yeah.
Because now for the 7th Doctor era, we'd had the TV series, and then we'd had the new adventure novels, and that was kind of all we really had. And then, you know, that was kind of 7th Doctor and Ace, and then Bernie Summerfield. And then now with the 8th Doctor, however, and there were divergent canons after the TV movie. There was the audios, which is I'm most familiar with. Yeah. There was the novels, which did have a long arc in them. I'm not so familiar with them, so I'm probably not going to go too much into them. I think the main companions in that was a girl called Sam he travelled with. The only novel I've ever read is War of the Daleks, and she is in that, and she's quite a.
Do you mean Lucy Miller?
No. This is the novels, the books.
Okay.
Right. In the books, there's a companion called Sam, who's just this
right.
And
from the current time.
Yeah, she's a modern day companion.
A bit more modern, yes.
Yeah, and there's also a character called Fitz, I believe. He's a kind of a companion from the 1960s. He's more of a Jack the Lad type companion. No, I've never. And so also there was the comic strips, and they had a companion called Izzy in them. It was this this really nerdish, big fan of comics, you know, comic strips and that kind of thing, and you know, big sci-fi fan.
Yeah.
Now, the thing is, in Big Finish tended to do its own thing with its own canon, but they did do a story called Company of Friends, which was this. It's like it was a 2-disc CD, and usually, you know, usually on a Big Finish CD you get like a 4-part story. In this, it was split into 4 parts, but each part was its own separate standalone story. So, and it kind of featured the idea of what if we did a story in which we actually had one of the companions from the comic strips travel with the 8th Doctor, or one of the companions from the books travel with the 8th Doctor. Now, the first one is the 8th Doctor and Bernie Summerfield. There's another one where he's with Izzy from the comics. The third one where he's with Fitz from the books. And that's so basically we were actually, for the first time, we were hearing Izzy and Fitz on audio and what they perhaps were meant to sound like. And then the fourth. Now I think the fourth one was based on maybe there was a particular line. I think in one of the either one of the audios or in one of the canons there'd been a reference, but it had never been followed up, that he had travelled with Mary Shelley for a time, and the final story is called Mary's Story, and it's where he meets Mary Shelley. Like I think he kind of crash lands, and he's in this very damaged state, and he needs her help to and it does actually bizarrely it does involve a lightning strike, some kind of basically an electric shock to kind of reinvigorate him or something. It's been a while since I've listened to it, but basically that was the introduction to a 3-part series in which the Doctor travels with Mary Shelley, and one of them was the Silver Turk, and there's 2 others. The Silver Turk was a Cyberman story, and it's hinted very much that Mary Shelley gains many of the ideas for Frankenstein from this encounter with this damaged, stranded Cyberman rather, that Mary Shelley feels very compassionate and merciful toward, and that leads to a conflict of interest with the Doctor, because she's kind of seeing, So that's Mary's story, but that was only a brief time they travelled together.
This is right. Pollard is more the most. I think travels the most in audios.
The companion had the longest on audio was Charlie.
Yeah,
Charlie Pollard.
Yeah, Charlie Pollard. Yes. We had also Lucy Miller.
Yes. Now Lucy Miller. That's after Charlie leaves.
Yeah.
I think something happens in the final episode with him and Charlie. I think because the thing is, Charlie, from the end of that, I think she miswitnesses, like she kind of sees what she thinks is the 8th Doctor being killed. Yeah. Now, obviously, it wasn't. She must have seen what she seen mustn't have been that, but she did kind of. Because of that, she ended up. She sent out a distress signal to be picked up by the Doctor, and she was picked up by the Doctor, but ends up being the 6th Doctor who picks her up, and so she has a long period of adventures with him. Whereas the Doctor, the 8th Doctor, he ends up traveling with. Yeah, basically, he's at the beginning of Blood of the Daleks, which is his first adventure with Lucy. He's in this really foul mood, and I think it's implied he's really, really cut up about the fact that Charlie's gone. He's bitter about it, and then the Time Lords plant Lucy on him. Like they basically, Lucy Miller. She's this woman from Blackpool, this young girl, quite chavvy girl, quite bit of a ladette, a bit fickle, rough side of the tracks kind of girl, and she just started work at this office, and she'd seen something involving the Cybermen, and the Time Lords had to put her into witness protection because I think she was going to be hunted down for what she saw. And so they basically planted her on the Doctor. They landed her in the Doctor's TARDIS, and at first the Doctor's really hostile to her because he thinks, firstly, she's very gobby. She's got an attitude about her, and he just resents having the Time Lords, without even consulting him, saying your job is to now keep this girl in your protection, kind of thing. And the Doctor just doesn't want to be burdened with her. And so yeah, they end up, because he keeps trying to get her home, but the Time Lords have basically put a temporal shield on her time period. So he tries to land her home, he misses, and they're basically, the TARDIS gets ricocheted to a colony world called Red Rocket Rising in the not too distant future.
Yeah.
And it's a planet that suffered a nuclear winter from a meteor strike. And it turns out that basically there's a plot involving the Daleks in that. But the main thing is that Lucy is very rash, and she's very she's very quick to she just wants to get away from the Doctor, really. Like the two of them really do not like each other at first.
No.
Very kind of hostile kind of exchanges.
It's really funny, all these different characters, and more differences with say the portrait, Lucy Miller.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I must admit
and
I
we'll
didn't.
also,
I will
yeah,
admit I didn't like Lucy at first. I thought she did seem really fickle and really kind of quite obnoxious, but she did grow on me. The more I listened to her audios, the more she and the Doctor traveled to each other, the more she kind of won me over, and I was very won over to how Sarah Sheridan Smith plays her. Like Sheridan Smith was very, very good in that role.
yeah,
She
strong
does.
woman.
Yeah, she gets some very emotion. Some very kind of vulnerable moments there where she's really
Yeah, yeah.
and should I reveal the end of Lucy's story?
Uh, yeah, you can do it.
Yeah, it ends with I believe she basically leaves the Doctor in 22nd century Earth. She basically becomes quite close with Susan's son, Alex.
Alex
And this is
Campbell,
this is post invasion Earth. She's kind of become quite
the
close with
great
him.
grandson, the great grandson of the Doctor.
Yeah, indeed. Now at this point, the Doctor and Lucy have had various fallings out. They've kind of met up again. Now the first fallout was because, the Doctor went back in time and met Lucy's auntie and uncle at a younger age, when years before she was born, and he gets involved in this plot involving the Zygons, and it turns out that one of the Zygons is actually doesn't want any part of the Zygons' war plans. And now, what actually happens is that Lucy's auntie is killed, and one of the Zygon that the Doctor had come to trust decided to take her auntie's place, using her body print to pretend to be her auntie. And the Doctor kind of keeps this secret, but eventually Lucy finds out. She finds out that all along that the auntie she thought she knew was actually a Zygon all along. I think something happens. I think tragedy hits there as well. So it's like she feels like the Doctor lied to her, and much of the basis of her life was a lie. And so that was there was a huge rift there. They kind of reconciled again, and then in the end, obviously, they became friends again. And finally, in Lucy Miller to the Death, that's kind of the end of her story, and that's where the Daleks invade Earth again. And this time they've got a plan to turn the Earth into this. They still got the old plan they had from the 1960s to create an engine at the heart of the planet and pilot it around the universe. But this time, they're going to fly the planet into this area of space. There was this thing called the. There was a particular variant space station that collected and quarantined all the viruses. But the Daleks had destroyed the entire station, and so the entire and in the debris was all the released plagues. And now the Daleks have a plan to fly to not only pilot the Earth, but pilot it through that particular plague area of space, so that the Earth itself will be irradiated with plague and can just transport plagues anywhere in the universe and anywhere in time, because they're planning to. This is basically the planning to pilot the planet through space and time. Now, Lucy, in the first spearhead of the attack, she catches the plague and she barely survives. Like, she's crippled, she's left blind in one eye, and this marks a big personality change for her, because she'd always been a bit kind of angry and ranty a bit, but this time she's just full on furious, and she just feels like she's got nothing to lose. And when the Doctor meets her again, she just basically blames him for it all. She just, she says, "This is all your fault. Why weren't you here to save us?" And the thing is, even after she says all that, she's immediately starts saying, "Sorry, I didn't mean to say that. It was a terrible thing to blame you for." It's like there's that kind of. It's a change in their dynamic. She's now quite. She's she's just prone to being kind of more having, she's not sure of anything anymore. She's disillusioned, but she's also she still cares about the doctor, but she's still got a lot of bitterness about things, and so it's kind of, it's in a way the bitterness is ruling her a bit.
Yeah.
And now her story ends basically in self-sacrifice, because the only way that Lucy can stop the planet from being piloted is she has to basically she takes command of this Dalek shuttle, and her only option is to crash the shuttle onto the device, and basically, which will blow it up and will defeat the Daleks planet and will suck the Daleks into the core of the planet. And she actually tries to communicate with the Doctor and says, look, is there another way out of this? Because if there's not, then I might as well sacrifice myself. And the Doctor is beaten by this point, and he realizes there isn't another way. Basically, the Daleks, they have to be stopped. And so he reluctantly just decides, look, Lucy's going to have to she's going to have to do what she has to do, and she's going to die, but she's going to save the Earth. And basically the Doctor kind of then challenges the Daleks, says, see what Lucy's about to do. That's what humans are capable of when you can't threaten them with death anymore. You've got no power over her anymore, because the fear of death means nothing to her now. She's prepared to die anyway. And so he's saying something about the human spirit there. And so Lucy she sacrifices herself. And it really affects the Doctor deeply. Like he becomes very disillusioned. And at the time, it looked like this was the turning point at which the 8th Doctor was going to become more like the 9th Doctor, in terms of this was the Doctor who was going to be prepared to fight to the bitter end against the Daleks.
Yeah. Very interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. Also, next companion I found, it was Molly O'Sullivan.
Oh yes. Now I don't have much on her. I've only heard her first season as companion. In Dark Eye.
The stories take place after To the Death.
Yeah. Basically, the Doctor lands in, I think it's during World War One, and Molly Sullivan is a military medic, basically, and she's in charge of dealing with the
nurse or something.
Yeah, she's in charge of the nurses who have to tend to the wounded on the battlefield, and she meets the Doctor. And it does turn out that the Time Lords, well, a particular renegade Time Lord called Cotras, has been using her as his pawn. Basically, he went back in time to her childhood and exposed her to a particular kind of temporal energy, which manifests in this thing called dark eyes. Basically, it gives kind of Molly's eyes a kind of a purple complexion, and it's given her that ever since childhood. And it's to do with one of Cotras' experiments, because Cotras is working with the Daleks at this point. He's kind of turned on his own people, and he's helping the Daleks. And now the main thing is Molly has a big complex about this. Whenever anyone points out that her eyes look a certain dark color, that she's prepared to get kind of quite threatening about it. She's like, you watch your mouth or you get a smack in the gob. Because she's got a bit of that, kind of quite working class rough, character to it.
Yeah. And then we have during that we are introduced to Liv Chenka as new companion.
Not got that far yet.
Okay. And Helen Sinclair, but you don't know these companions. So you are not so familiar with.
I'm only really familiar with Molly, and even only from her first season. And I do know that the main thing is that Lucy's death was the huge point of despair for this Doctor. This was the point where he lost all faith in anything, and Molly was the one to give him hope. And he does actually say to her that despair is comfortable and hope is what hurts, because hope is precious. hope is fragile. It's something you can lose easily, and it's something you find yourself clinging onto, and you're never quite secure with hope. Hope is always, that's what hurts. Hope is what hurts, and that's what he's saying to us. And she becomes his hope in a way. She helps him in that dark time.
Yeah. So it's very interesting to see that what the deep influence this companion had on the Doctor.
Indeed.
And so he can also use this as an explanation of his future incarnations.
Maybe
in some way.
Mm-hmm.
In some way, yeah, you can or you cannot relate, but you can use it to relate to his future incarnations. You can use it, or you can use it not. This is for the fan to decide. But after hearing your about telling your summary about Lucy and things, I was thinking about to myself. Yeah, it explains a lot in War Doctor and also on the Ninth Doctor. But yeah. Also that's that the point of self-sacrifice. There's also an element in the Doctor with self-sacrifice, but it was very strong. We can see that in the Ninth Doctor we discussed it on other stream. And we have also discussed that in the past stream of the personality, but we also discuss it in the next live stream about the Ninth Doctor companion. You see that's the element.
Yeah. I mean, I think if there's a takeaway from these adventures is that now at first I thought this was all heading toward this is going to be the point where the Eighth Doctor decides to join the ward effort in Gallifrey in the fight against the Time, in the fight the Time War against the Daleks. But it turns out it was kind of the opposite, and I think in some ways it's like maybe the Doctor just realizes after Lucy's death that there's just no point fighting the Daleks. That they're not going to. That it's an unwinnable war, and that he can't have any part in it because it's going to provoke the Daleks to go further and further in their aggression, and the fighting is just going to be a way of prolonging it, and he just doesn't see a way of winning it. And of course, this leads to Night of the Doctor, doesn't it? Because that's the point where the Doctor is told that he can't avoid this anymore. He has to get involved.
Yes, that's right. He can't be passive any longer.
Yeah, and that's to do with his encounter with Cass, this pilot of a crashing starship. And you get the sense that she was being, when we're introduced to her, it looks like she's going to be the companion. But then it's twisted on his head that she finds out that he's a Time Lord, and at this point, the Time Lords have a reputation of being, they're basically the Daleks and Time Lords. They're both fighting the war on equal terms. They're both seen as being as bad as each other. And so she kind of just refuses to travel with him. And because of that, she stays on the crashing ship. And that's when he is mortally wounded. And he crash lands on Khan. And it's the Sisterhood who have to perform they have to provide him with the elixir that will allow him to change. And they say, well, we can allow you to change into any form you like.
Yeah.
And he's decided, I think at this point, like he kind of protests against the idea of fighting this war, but you get the sense it's a formality at this point. He kind of, it's just, he knows deep down he has to fight this war. And so he decides that he will take the elixir and they will allow him to choose his next incarnation. And his next incarnation is the Warrior, or the War Doctor, as he's now known. More well known.
Yes, I already changed my avatar.
Yeah. So now the War Doctor is not typically a Doctor of companions. He's kind of a lone fighter.
Loner, yeah.
But of course, the show needs a companion now and again, so he has had temporary companions, hasn't he? Like he'll have a companion for a time in one of the because he has had a few spin-off adventures. Like the Big Finish have done an audio series with him whilst John Hurt was still alive. They did some adventures together, and they did about
the trailer.
Yeah, but they did they actually did 4 box sets of adventures with John Hurt's Doctor, and I think they are going to do more with a I think they already have started to do more with a recast. Because the thing is, when we first see the War Doctor when we're first after the Eighth Doctor's regenerated in Night of the Doctor, we do briefly see a mirror reflection of John Hurt's Doctor, and he's young in that. He's like his reflection is basically young John Hurt, and that hints that the War Doctor, he was young at one point. He grew old in the war, like that he's been fighting the war for so long that he aged.
Yes.
And so there's this kind of now Big Finish have done this box set about what's meant to be the younger years of the War Doctor, before he grew old into the John Hurt we see in Name of the Doctor and Day of the Doctor.
Yeah.
So I've only heard a few of the audios, but I have read. Now I do believe in the audios, the War Doctor is actually teamed up with Leela briefly, like he's reunited with Leela, and she became at the time. Now, also there's a book I've been reading called Engines of War by George Mann. And that's basically the War Doctor got involved in a fight that the Daleks were engaged in on the planet Morlock. No, wait. Sorry, I think I got that right. I think I got that wrong. Sorry. Nope. The planet Moldox. Planet Moldox. And now in that he the planet basically the planet Moldox is this world that the Daleks conquered. They basically leveled pretty much most of the planet. There's only a few meager survivors in resistance groups, and the Daleks have a plan to use the planet because of it's quite close to this phenomenon called the Tantalus Eye. Like there's this kind of collection of worlds orbiting this particular area of space that has this, like there's this kind of a time-space anomaly in the area, which allows it to kind of, through it you can basically see glimpses into parallel universes. And the Daleks are planning to use this world as their base to build this doomsday weapon that will allow them to build this weapon that will basically erase Gallifrey from history. And so the Doctor has to stop them. Now his companion in this is a girl called Cinder. Now she lost her whole family in the early days of the invasion. So for the most part, she's only ever known life as a survivor of the Daleks, as this resistance fighter. Now she was picked up by the human resistance, because the thing about it is she was a young child at the time. I think she must have been 5 or something. And because she was small, it allowed a certain maneuverability. Like she could hide in particular small spaces and do spying on the Daleks, so she could kind of do surprise attacks on Daleks from beneath. Like she could hide in bins basically and not be spotted by Daleks. I mean, I think she was found by the resistance after her home had been attacked, and her hair was covered in kind of dust, and so they gave her the nickname Cinder. And so she's in the middle of one of these operations to trick the Daleks and bring them out of basically she's part of an ambush on a Dalek patrol. And the Doctor, at that point, it goes wrong. She's about to be killed, and the Doctor's TARDIS crash lands, takes out the Dalek that was about to kill her, and that's when she meets the Doctor. And at first she's very hostile to him. She doesn't trust him. She doesn't really trust anyone she doesn't know. And he's a stranger. And of course he's a Time Lord, and she knows about the Time Lord's reputation. But gradually, she's very cheeky. That's the main character. She's very cheeky, very paranoid, very suspicious. And she's been very hardened by the experience. But over time, you do get the sense this Doctor has given her something she's not had in a while, which is hope. That he's kind of given her hope that she can do more than just survive and occasionally take revenge. She begins to feel he can give her a way off this world, or he can he can even turn things around for her world and actually allow her to make a more strategic strike that will beat the Daleks. She begins to hope that this Doctor can finally defeat the Daleks, and so she kind of just warmed to him for that, and it's a change of perspective for her because she's only ever known this life, and she's finally beginning to get hope of a better life because she's quite real. She is realistic. She's not, she's had to give up kind of naive childhood delusions a long time ago, but she begins to think this Doctor can turn things around. Now she doesn't entirely trust him. She does see that he's quite reckless in some ways, but she does also get the sense that maybe he knows what he's doing and that he's worth sticking with. And I have to say, reading the book, I was hoping that this kind of dynamic would continue, that we'd maybe get more and more books with him and Cinder traveling together, because it was quite a beautiful thing. And there was the thing, it was a different kind of dynamic in terms of the companion, because usually the companion's like, well, I'm happy to go with the Doctor, what's the trouble? Whereas with Cinder, it's like she's part of this. She's an orphan, but she does have a very close ties with the human resistance. She has friends in the human resistance. They're meager survivors, and she does feel guilty about the thought of wanting to run out on them. She wants to leave, but she also feels guilty that if I leave, I'm taking the easy way out. What about my friends? They still have to fend for themselves against the Daleks. And so there is kind of that complex to her. I mean, and that's the thing. It's like she's not just all hardened to the experience. She does have a sensitivity. And she's still there's still things about the Daleks that still horrify her. Like the Doctor does take her into a Dalek testing facility where they've got these humans as guinea pigs, and even though she's seen a lot of war and death, there's still things she sees here that shock and horrify her. And now the thing about the War Doctor is that it's not like the traditional adventures with the Doctor. It's a much harder fight.
Yeah.
The Doctor isn't always going to win. In fact, a lot of the time he doesn't, because he is fighting insurmountable odds against the Daleks. He can only achieve small Pyrrhic victories, and he is suited to being alone. And he offers her the promise of being able to save her, but in the end, he doesn't. He can't save her in the end. It's like there's just too much danger. It's just the stakes have become too dangerous, and in the end, Cinder does die, sadly, at the end. And the Doctor has become very fond of her, and he does make the point to return her remains to her home. But it's kind of it's kind of a very sad acknowledgement that the Doctor can't have companions now. It's like the universe is too dangerous place for it now, and he's kind of cursed to be alone in this fight. He's not really working with the Time Lords. He's a rogue element, but he's renounced companions. He doesn't feel like he can go back to that life now. He's that was him when he was the Doctor, and he sees himself as the Doctor no more. And I think in some ways this is meant to be. I think the book hints this is supposed to be the turning point that sees him kind of decide, I'm going to serve notice on you all. I'm going to end this war, whatever it takes. Which leads us to Day of the Daleks. So sorry, no. This leads us to Day of the Doctor.
Yeah,
I've got this up there. We've been talking about Daleks so much, I forgot about the Doctor. So yeah, Day of the Doctor. We should probably talk about that too, because the Doctor, the War Doctor, he does have a companion in that, doesn't he?
Yes, that's right.
Who's the companion?
We had the Rose.
Well, it's not Rose really. It's the moment.
The moment Rose is speaking to him.
Yeah. The moment
when he has a device to have some device, he can decide to end all the war.
Yeah, the moment is one of the ancient weapons of the Time Lords, like the Hand of Omega, the Silver Nemesis statue. The moment is one of the ancient weapons of the Time Lords, and it's basically one of the forbidden weapons. It's in the Forbidden Weapons Vault, and the Doctor basically recovers it from the Weapons Vault because it's the only weapon they have left. And now the Time Lords say that the reason they never use this weapon is because that this weapon has an intelligence to it and a conscience to it. It's like the TARDIS has a kind of a sentient conscience to it. So does the moment. And because the moment is basically the weapon that will end all life on, it will basically win the war. But the Time Lords fear that because the moment has a conscience and it has a kind of a moral sense and a certain self-aware, self-determination. It's a self-determined device. It's a self-determined life form, really. Time Lords fear that the moment will cast judgment on them just as much as it will cast judgment on the Daleks, and will say the Time Lords have done a lot of evil things in this war, and the moment will probably decide to punish them all for it. And so that's why they've never used the weapon. They say that it was quite early in the development of the device it developed a conscience. And that's what the Doctor finds out the War Doctor finds out when he operates the device. Now, his intention is that he's going to end the war. He's going to destroy Gallifrey and the Time Lords in one go, and himself with them. It's a suicide weapon, basically. He's decided, that he has to end the war, and he has to end it because otherwise the Time Lords are going to enact their plans to, the final sanction. It was to bring about the end of time itself. And so it's imperative. The Doctor has no choice but to do this. Now, the moment takes the hologram form of Rose, the Doctor's future companion, Rose. Of course, because the moment seems to have future foresight. It knows events to come. It knows what will happen. And so I think that the device knows what will become of the Doctor if he presses the device. He knows the moment she knows the outcome of this war. And she also seems to know how to handle this Doctor. Because when the moment first appears to the Doctor, it's this kind of, he's obviously he's this beaten down, desperate, defeatist man. He just sees no hope. He has a lot of guilt. He just believes that he's done the most terrible things that he can't be forgiven for, and he decides that, and now he's going to have to do the ultimate act, and it does seem like there's no dissuading him from this. But I think the moment is quite shrewd. It knows how to deal with him, because I think the moment, basically, it's at the core of the moment. I think this is what Moffat was trying to do. He's he had the Daleks, these war machines of hate, and the Doctor's working with this device called the Moment, which is this also a war machine, but it's a war machine of love, I think, because I think the Moment is actually quite a compassionate device. It cares about the Doctor deeply. It cares about saving Gallifrey. It's a being of love, but it also knows that there's no way of kind of just preaching to the Doctor, oh, it's all going to work out fine. The Doctor's not going to believe that. So it knows how to. So its first approach for the Doctor is to be confrontational, to confound him, to go along with his suicide plan, as it were. And because that's the only thing he's going to respond to at that point. He's not going to question himself otherwise, unless she confounds him a bit. Because I think that is her plan all along, is that she will inspire in this Doctor hope again. And I think that's kind of that, because she knows that he's a desperate man. She knows that he needs help. And she knows that there is a better way of winning this war. And so the entire story is basically her master plan to get the Doctor to learn the solution. that will save Gallifrey, that will destroy the Daleks, and also preserve the timeline. So the Doctor will think Gallifrey has been destroyed, but it turns out not to. Like she's basically slowly having to educate this Doctor out of his darkest slump, like the time when he's most kind of needed. And she has a real reverence for the Doctor. She kind of, like, the Time Lords, they're a very stuffy, clinical, cold race, and it does almost come across like the moment, even though it's kind of an artificial intelligence, it's kind of a machine. It kind of has more compassion and more kind of soul in it than the Time Lords do. You know, she's kind of it's unbridled compassion and soul, and just the marvels of the wonder and beauties of the universe and of life and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And so in the end, the moment saves the Doctor's soul, and she saves Gallifrey. She was kind of she was the Doctor's desperate. She was kind of. Yeah, and then that's the thing. She is a weapon that only the most desperate would reach for, and once he took her into his hands, he took her into his heart.
Yeah.
And he didn't even realize that she was saving him all along.
Yeah, and this is also a prologue to the next live stream about Rose in the Ninth Doctor. Very nice, rich.
Yeah, indeed.
Just by the way, did you know that in the Day of Doctor, the original conception of the show anniversary special, Moffat had written the Ninth Doctor as having ended the Time War, because the War Doctor was not supposed to be in the whole arc.
I have heard that, yeah.
But it was like, and so he had to search for or look for a solution. So he invented the War Doctor.
Yeah, I mean, at the time I felt like it should have been McGann who fought the war. I felt like it would just make sense to just bring back McGann instead and have him end the war. But I think in the end it balanced out, because I think John Hurt, like, he's no longer with us, but I think toward the end he loved that role. He loved being given that role.
Yeah,
he loved doing it on TV story. He loved doing it on the audios. I think it was a rejuvenation, and I think it's that classic. Well, who could deny him that? I think he was, and he was great in the role. It was a beautiful, beautiful story. I feel like that's the kind of story we need. Hopefully, that will kind of story like that could really reinvigorate the show.
But I think Moffat did a great job to implement this Doctor.
Yeah.
Yeah, but because of all the things you said about that Rose made him better Doctor, you can say,
indeed,
saves the day. Yeah, so it's very very well written in the canon, War Doctor. He had you could choose Paul McGann, by the way, to save the day, or but don't know if it was one of the options to end the war through Paul McGann.
Yeah, it was. Well, it was an option, but he went with the idea of the hidden Doctor, the War Doctor,
with the never seen before seen past incarnation. Yeah.
Indeed.
Yeah, and it made it very nice, this story about the Doctor.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. The War Doctor has not so many companions, but more allies in the war, you can say.
Well, you could say the companion
more
he
like
did
allies.
have. You could say that the companion he did have really counted in the end, and the companion, the moment, made the ultimate difference for him in the end.
Yeah.
And doesn't bear thinking about what the outcome of the war would be otherwise.
Yeah.
If he'd not had a companion that day.
Yeah. So you can see the important role of the companion. That's the
Yeah.
reason why we do these live streams. We see the important role of the companion, the relation between the doctor and the companion, and influence have a good influence on each other. And yeah, that's the reason.
Yeah.
That's what makes Doctor Who the nice show, because of this dynamics and
Indeed.
what and the behavior they have, and what the results are of that behavior. Yeah,
Hmm. Yes.
it's very interesting, very fun. That's why we like Doctor Who.
Indeed.
Yeah. So that's what that was the Eighth Doctor and the War Doctor, the companions of. And we had already a prologue of Roses, so we have a nice bridge for next time.
Indeed.
I've already contacted Queen Charlotte,
Cool.
so we can next time we can do it with the three of us
Possibly. I'll
for
see
the
if I'm
Ninth
free.
Doctor.
I mean, if it's just the, yeah.
You are so
Well,
invited, but
I might join you. I might
what?
join you. It depends what day you're doing it. If I'm free. No,
Okay,
as I say, I
that's
might join you.
okay. No, but you are free. But I wanted to inform you that I have already contacted Charlotte. You say that as an option, and I have done that. I have
Well, I mean,
contacted her. But,
well, I think,
yeah.
yeah. It was always the best to do it with the three of us. I think we had the most fun together. I think.
Yeah, she's more also a Matt Smith and
Yeah. Oh, she loves Matt Smith. Yes.
so we will wrap it up, or
Yeah, I think we've
I
covered it
think
all.
we are close now for ending.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, we have learned a lot, and we've enjoyed this live stream.
Indeed.
I've learned a lot. That's why we have these live streams to dive deeper in the world of Doctor Who and the universe. And yeah, I repeat it again. You can see it's so fun to see Doctor Who is a show. The Doctor and the companion, they are one entity actually in some of the cases, and they add to each other, and they make things realize, and in the end, the Doctor want to make the companion better, and you can see also the other side. The companion is making the Doctor better in some way or another.
Yeah.
That's why I like this show. So with that words, I want to end the live stream, and I want to thank you, Sadeko, for your time. And yeah, I have really enjoyed what you have told us.
Yeah.
Uh, but because yeah, the audios are not so my thing, and then I've learned new things. So thank you for that. And I'm really enthusiastic to hear more audio when I heard your when I heard these things from you. So thank you.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Okay. And yeah, everyone enjoy this live stream, and see and you next time, and enjoy the stream and enjoy Doctor Who. So I want to say thank you and bye bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.